So I want to talk to you about the difference between all over print and surface print. And I thought the best way for me to get this across is to ask an industry expert. So here she is.
I'm just merely laughing at the thought of being called an industry expert, but thank you.
You are. You've been
Yeah,
decades in the
been doing it a while,
print
yeah.
industry. So this is Marie Walker. And Marie is from a company called MCS, and we've worked together quite a lot because she also does some print on demand.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so MCS Branding is a family-run business that has been 30 years on the go. And yes, technology has moved along so that we also are very heavily involved in the print on demand. Print on demand is kind of like my baby. I think it's my part of the business. I love it because it gives everybody access to merchandise, and merchandise is no longer something that you have to buy thousands of, and it's no longer something that only people with massive marketing budgets can have access to. And maybe more importantly, you can earn some money from your merchandise as well, and additional incomes is what we are all about these days. And Joe and I are working together in many different ways to try and help you create as much money as you possibly can from your merchandise.
Definitely. Absolutely. Brilliantly put. And Marie, you're in Belfast.
I am, yes. My family are Irish. I'm not. I was born in England. And about 20 plus years ago, we came back for an extended break, and it extended to the point that we've been here for 20 odd years. So yeah, I somehow have not lost my accent, my English accent. Yeah.
Not at
But
all.
we're based in Northern Ireland. So that helps all the people out there in the rest of Europe when we post out there, because Northern Ireland has got that nice little advantage to the mail.
Absolutely. Very good. Very good. So what we're going to be talking about today is all over print versus, or more sort of the distinction between surface print. Now, this is because I've been talking in this channel about things like Redbubble, where there's a whole heap of products, and some of them have all over print and some of them have surface print. And I think we need to really explain the difference and show why one can work on a certain product better than another and vice versa. So from your point of view, what is the definition and the various print methods that would be surface print?
We have what you would call heat press machines for our printing, and that is a process. There's a number of different processes. You can print straight to the garment, you can put something onto the garment through a process of heat pressing it in, or there's screen printing. The all over print doesn't really work for us because of the types of machinery that we have. Because when you're surface printing, especially if you're applying heat, then it's going only to be able to happen in a certain area. So you either have the garment itself being directly printed, so it goes straight into the garment in a specific area, or you take a transfer or vinyl or whatever your methodology is, or the screen print. And of course, that's only going to be able to get put onto the garment in a particular area. So that's why you don't necessarily take the methodology as being the all over print. It's a completely different process. And I think that's possibly why you find not as many printers like us offer it, because it's the type of machinery that you have access to as much as anything else.
Absolutely. And if we're talking about something massive, like a duvet cover, for example, or a shower curtain, something big like that, it's going to be very hard for you to have a piece of machinery that is going to be able to replicate that design all the way across it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, we do have multiple decoration areas, we call them. So you can have, let's take a sweatshirt as a great example. You can print on the front, you can print on the back, you can print on the sleeves, you can print on the collars, you can print at the cuff. It's all possible to print, but the garment actually exists in a piece already. So it's very, very difficult to get right into all of the areas, and especially when you're talking about seams. So that's really the main crux of an all over print, when the garment itself is already made up. You just can't get a heat press, for example, to put the print in the same heat and under the same pressure when you've got a seam in the way. That's, I know that's starting to get a bit technical, but that's the blockage.
Well, it stands to reason, doesn't it, that the flat layer of the heat press, the flat plate, is you've got the seam and you've got not just the part where there's the stitching, but the way the fabric's folded over. That is going to cause an uneven substrate, and so it's going to be very difficult. Absolutely. So with an
it is possible to take an area on each part of the garment and create a decoration there, but the cuffs and the seams, they'll just get in the way of you being able to, if you like, repeat that to the point that you're able to create an all over print. It's just not possible to do.
I can see that. There was a time way back when I first started trying to do custom printing from home, my little cottage industry that I did. Not your level by any means. A very cheap heat press that, well, 4 because I kept killing them. But I would make, in fact, I bought a job lot of mouse mats and weren't using them because nobody wanted to buy them because you don't really need them anymore. So I was cutting them up and using them as padding so that then I would be able to pad things out. So, for example, if I was doing something like a face mask, I'd cut almost a slightly smaller shape of a face mask so I could put it underneath so that it then raised it up. But it was a right pickle. It was a right faff. And I certainly never managed to make 2 look the same. Every time they looked like and there was always a little gap and always a little bit of white showing. So very, very tricky, very, very.
It's a very specialist type of printing, very specific, very specialist. For that exact reason, you need very specific machinery that will do it. And in some cases, the garment hasn't actually been put together yet either. No. So they can take, the garment pieces exist, they're printed, and then they get sewn together to create. So you don't have the seams and the cuffs and all those things getting in the way, which is why sometimes takes a little bit longer, can be a little bit more expensive, and why it isn't freely available to all printers, because it's a very specific machinery.
Absolutely. And if you do look on the platforms, places like Redbubble, you do find that the all over print products tend to be quite a bit more expensive. You've got that big fly going past. I've had one here as well. The weather in the UK has been so rubbish that I think they've all come indoors, haven't they? So dreadful year for it. So yes, with all over print, usually in fact, it is printed as a flat layer of fabric and then it's made up from a pattern. So this means that if you're going on a website and you're carefully trying to position where the pattern's going to land, that doesn't necessarily mean when it's made up it's going to be exactly like that, because they're not necessarily using that part of the fabric. So that is something else to bear in mind.
It is, and it's tricky because sometimes people want the all over print because it's a very specific graphic, a large face, lion's head, that kind of thing. So they want the whole thing, and it has to be as detailed in that certain place for the whole design to be the feature. And then you get the finished product and that really important detail has been missed off the sleeve or something like that, or it's sewn up into the cuff or whatever. So it is tricky. It's very, very tricky to rely on a thing that you're not actually seeing the finished product of as well.
Absolutely. Now, the actual process with all over print is usually done by, it can be done by things like screen printing, but of course then there's on the surface again. But it's usually done by sublimation. And the way sublimation works is under extreme heat, and it's much, much hotter than the normal surface print heats. So it can only be done with certain types of fabric for that very reason. But also it needs to be a polyester base. It can be 65, 75% polyester. But as soon as you go below about 50, you're going to get more muted colors. And the way it works is, and obviously, Marie, I know you know this, but for everybody else, the way it works is a tiny little molecules, and under the heat, they open and a gas comes out, and the gas bonds with the fabric. And am I getting this right? The gas bonds with the fabric, and that's it. It's in for good. there is another element with this that I remember from my custom printing days. I bought myself a very expensive sublimation printer. Still got it. Oh, don't really know what to do with it now. But if you go wrong, that's it. That's that garment, that item, trashed. There is nothing you can do with it, because once it's in there for good. Now, in theory, as print on demand people doing our print on podders, doing our print on demand, it doesn't really matter to us if you back in the print shop goes wrong and end up having to use another garment. But at the end of the day, that all affects the cost, doesn't it? The knock-on cost.
Yes, exactly. And your printers will know that. So it's our responsibility as a printer to get the product right, to have it looking the way you set it up to look. So if it comes off of our machine, and let's be honest, with all the skill in the world, sometimes these things happen. You didn't see the crease, that wasn't one there before. You could swear it didn't go on the plate like that. You know, all of that, or something moved, or, you know, whatever. It happens. We'll take it off. We'll look at it. It's wrong. It won't get sent to the customer. We'll redo it. Or, you know, you picked black out when it should have been white. There are a million things.
Yeah.
Until that product is with the customer, it's our responsibility to get it right, have it look the way you as the customer set it up to look. And it remains our responsibility. If we've missed it and it gets sent out to the customer white when they ordered black, it's also our responsibility to fix that. So all of those things do definitely come into account when
Absolutely.
you're putting your prices together, for sure. Yeah. And I think sublimation as well, it's one of those only certain types of products, only in certain colors. So
Yeah.
it kind of restricts all round the type of print, product, finished article, prices.
I was looking at a mug that I've got here, which has been printed and it's faded right off. So would you say that all over print is it different in that it's likely to be able to go through the washing and drying process compared to surface prints? Or is the machinery and the technique so good now that really...
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, sublimation on a garment, the sublimation on the mug, for example, there's a million different reasons why that fade off could be there if it wasn't intended, for example. And that's quite a lot of the time the pressure that the mugs and the temperature may be not being quite correct. And there's dozens of different reasons. Sometimes it creates quite a nice effect, so you keep it. But if it's textile, then it should be quite specific. It shouldn't make, and like you say, the technology has advanced to such a degree. And certainly, I think with all types of print, though, there shouldn't be any garment out there that is going to come off in the wash, for example. That should not be happening with the technology we have available to us now. If it is, then something's gone wrong somewhere. You know, it's not gone on under the right pressure or the right heat. But the wearability, the quality of the finished print, yeah, we have moved on. And every time you look around, there's a new type of technology or an advancement in that type of print that just makes it better than what's gone before. And it happens constantly. Every time you turn around and you open another print industry magazine. Oh, look, it's like Printer's Christmas. Look at that printer. Let's have one of them.
I can imagine. And there is a huge difference between what I was able to do here with my little £99 heat press and the machinery that you have in industrial printers.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, they are of the same family, let's say. But I suppose ours are just tougher and meaner.
And bigger and more expensive.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with those types of products, and they create, you know, really good looking finished items. There's just sometimes there's a different type of print or a certain type of product that just needs that type of finish to it, and that's what we have access to. And then you obviously have the, you know, scalability of it as well.
That's true as well. So all of these are brilliant reasons to be doing print on demand rather
Oh,
than
yeah.
staying up all night
Not that
trying to
I'm
get
biased in any way.
Yeah, well, me too, because as soon as I discovered that I could hand over the whole side of fulfillment to somebody else, I was delighted. And that's whether you're doing it through a company like one of the platforms like Redbubble or Spreadshirt or Teespring or Society6 or any of them, or whether you're doing it linked to your website with something, an integration like Printful or Printify, or whether you're doing it through MCS and doing it through these built-in all-in-one go website print on demand functions. It's all so much easier than trying to do it.
Like, it's the fun part. If you've given the, you know, I call it the grunt work. If you've given that work over to somebody that does that for a living, to us it's not grunt work. To us it's the day to day, and we do it. We have the facilities for it, and you guys get to do the fun part. Now I have my own print on demand shop where I use our platform, and that's the bit I love to do. I get to create and I make the designs, and that's the fun part. Leave somebody else to do all the rest of it. That's what I say.
Absolutely. So just as we're winding up, I will say that where Marie and I work together, we also work with a lady called Nicola Toner, and the three of us together, we work for we come together to
We
do
are.
1, 2, 3. And I will link below to other videos and where you can find all about Rod 1, 2, 3 and how that all ties up. Marie, thank you so much for
My pleasure.
coming along and joining me today. You've been my first interview over on this brand new Jo Wiles Smith YouTube channel, so I'm delighted to have had you here. Thank you.
Happy to be here. Hope it was useful, people.